And we're going to field your questions, and then we're going to go to the fans forum comments section because we got some people written some really interesting things about what we're doing on our podcast. Go ahead, John, start.
Okay, so this is from Joseph Munoz. He says, just in, the Padres and Suarez have agreed upon a deal.
That's very good. They were going to have to overpay, so they probably went from $5 million base to $10 million because he's got multiple years of arbitration. So there's an opportunity for the Padres to lock him down. They were negotiating to try to get Nick Martinez signed to a contract extension. I had been told that one of the things they were going to do, or they might pay bump him up, let him be a starter, but as for him to get in the pay raise, he had to give up the opt-out clauses in years 2, 3, and 4 of the contract that he initially had. So the Padres are active. Again, $28 million space. I've been told that's what the budget is for Preller to either use to re-sign guys or to go in the marketplace. So maybe they can get one veteran from the outside, and they've taken care of one or maybe two of their in-house potential free agents. I don't know how much more that Peter Seidler is going to allow AJ Preller to go over the $219 million threshold that he was at last year, because they're paying another year of luxury tax on that. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Robert Bellanzon, and he says, how come we never heard much about the Padres pitching coach with his single-A player experience?
Well, he had done a good job in Cleveland, Ruben Niebla. He had developed that pitching staff. You know, if you look back at where Cleveland was maybe 3 years ago, they had Trevor Bauer and they had Shane Bieber, and they had, before he got hurt, Mike Clevenger. It's a pretty good team, and Ruben has been the pitching coach there, and he brought great credentials with him. He's trusted, and being a pitching coach means you have to be a guy that can sight and scope out pitchers who have mechanical problems, aka Blake Snell. You have to be a psychiatrist to help the young guys who go through real bad stretches, aka Suarez early, Ramirez, who got yanked out of the rotation, the huge challenge with former Padre Mackenzie Gore, the challenge ahead with Ryan Weathers. So he's got a good track record, and I thought he did a pretty decent job, although he had a lot of veteran pitchers to work with. But working with veteran pitchers is a challenge because those guys are set in their ways. And you're telling me to change what I'm doing? I'm set in my ways. So he did a pretty good job on Bob Melvin's staff first year around.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a great job. I'm real happy that he's with the Padres. Okay, here's another one, but I'm going to let you say it.
Show me your lightning bolt.
Yeah.
You know, people ask me all the time, I was the voice of the Chargers, where did that come from? It just came off the top of my head. In the playoffs, on the road to the Super Bowl, right at the end. I mean, it was so emotional in our radio booth because the stadium was so emotional. The town was going crazy. And they had beaten Miami in a game played on a muddy field in the first round of the playoffs. There's a lot of controversy about Don Shula. And Shula had screwed up the field by driving his golf cart on there during a walkthrough on Saturday. And then it rained more. And by the time they played the game, field was all chewed up. Well, here's Miami trying to win the game in the final seconds, and they're asking their kicker, Pete Stojakovic, to kick off the dirty part of the field that had been torn up by Don Shula. And he shanks it. And the Chargers win the game and go on to Pittsburgh to play in the AFC Championship game. And the stadium was going crazy. And I stood up after he missed the field goal. And I said, look at these fans. Show me your lightning bolt. And all these people have been wearing headsets listening. He turned around and yeah. So that's where show me your lightning bolt.
I was there. I was at that game. And it's back when I had season tickets. And yeah, I had the transistor radio in one hand. And what did I have in the other hand? I had my ticket, right?
That's what I said. Ticket in the left hand, transistor radio in your right hand. So that's where show me your lightning bolt came from, and it's kind of stayed with us. Now, we got some written questions from people who replied on our YouTube channel. You want to pop up one or two of them in our fans forum?
Okay, so let's go here. And this is from Eric Wahlberg.
Read it.
The loss, we're talking about the Andy Reid story, you know,
with the son.
Yeah, with the son, the DUI tragedy. The law says a max of 7 years. He pled, so when you plea, almost by default, your sentence is reduced. Would 7 years be justice? I don't think you'd be happy. The girl is not a vegetable. She's improving. They are addicts, not always the same as abusers. Not fair to blame Andy. Do we blame all parents for addicted children?
Well, I guess to a degree, there's a fair assessment there that it's the young person that makes the decision. But the fact that his other son was a heroin addict, and then this son had substance abuse and multiple alcohol issues, and then the near fatal rear end car crash that badly damaged that family. That's a big issue. And the question is, Andy Reid was so stoic and so standoffish to the media, and I'm coaching football. And I got a game plan to put together. I mean, I was almost to the point of being appalled at how he reacted and did not seem to condemn nor indict his sons for what they did. And the older son died of a heroin overdose in the Eagles camp in the team dorm. And Andy Reid just went on and on and on. Business of coaching football. Just a great coach? Heck yes. Bright light? For sure. But to handle your family crisis that way, as if it's not a big thing, I got a job to do, I don't know. That kind of bothered me. I don't, John, if you got a different spin, tell me what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it was really disappointing how the whole thing went down. It is curious. I mean, about Andy Reid and his two sons and the challenges they've had. Not trying to blame Andy Reid necessarily for the tragedy, but there are just some things that raise an eyebrow. It's DOI is such a serious matter, not just with the NFL and players and coaches, but society wide. I just hope that they take a serious stance on this.
Well, I give the family, the Hunt family that owns the Kansas City Chiefs, Eric, a lot of credit. They are paying for all the ongoing medical costs for this girl who's brain damaged for the rest of her life. So the organization itself has stepped up, even though Andy Reid has kind of handled it very, very directly. You got another one you want to post up here?
Yeah, I do. And this is great. These are all from your YouTube channel, people commenting on the videos. And this is from Ryan Jin Living. And this is about Jalen Maiden, being the number 5 quarterback, getting a starting job. Great point, Hacksaw. Brady needs to bring in a top offensive coordinator to develop quarterbacks. I figured that the coaching staff was going to give Haskell an opportunity to be the starter, but obviously that didn't happen when Burmeister suddenly showed up and Haskell left for the portal. Who could blame him? Well, it hasn't worked out for Burmeister either. Now, I couldn't be happier for Jalen Maiden as he's showing a lot of skill, athleticism, maturity at the position. Going forward, hopefully Brady will get this thing straightened out.
Well, it's interesting. I asked Brady this past week. Jalen Maiden is a transfer, and he hardly played at all last year. Then obviously played defense at the end of the season, played defense at the start of the season. I posed the question, does Maiden have a COVID year of eligibility tacked on at the end? And Brady said he did not know. Well, we went back and checked, and yes, he did. Mm-hmm. Jalen Maiden is announcing, he told me this past Tuesday, I'm coming back as a graduate student. I will play another year. So they got another year with now suddenly a veteran quarterback with great athleticism to develop. Very disappointed that Haskell bailed. Brady Hoke has this saying that the kid's attitude is, if I'm not playing, I'm not staying. Well, you got to go through some adversity. You got to grow, fight through it. Now, I don't know whether this kid didn't practice well or this became an attitude issue or whether the coordinator, Jeff Hecklinski, didn't develop him. Hecklinski has been fired since. They've obviously got a bright young kid in Kyle Crum who's coming off broken collarbone surgery. I felt bad for Braxton Burmeister. This whole thing is blown up in his face. He bailed out of Virginia Tech, new coaching staff. They're having a miserable season in Blacksburg. I think they're 2-6 or 2-7. He was a pretty competitive quarterback last year, but he just got battered here at San Diego State. The offensive coordinator question, I think, is really interesting. And I think this is the thing you have to pay attention to. They're having some success with Maiden and Jeff Horton. And Horton is a former coordinator and a former head coach. Do you stay the course with those guys and just not do anything from the outside? Or do you flip the coordinator position if Horton doesn't want the workload? Do you give it to Ryan Lindley, the ex-Aztec quarterback who was just brought in to be a quarterback coach? Bright light, coached at Mississippi State for Mike Leach. Prior to that, coached with the Cleveland Browns for a short period of time. legendary Aztec, super intelligent football guy, has had a really good working relationship with Jalen Maiden in the month that they've been together. Do you give the coordinator's job to a younger guy like Ryan Lindley, or is he too inexperienced? So once we get to the end of the football season, Brady Hoke's got a real tough decision to make as to whether you stay with a trusted assistant in Horton. Do you open the door and allow Ryan Lindley to take the next step in his career, knowing that he's kind of accomplished some things with Jalen Maiden? Or do you go outside and try to find somebody different? Interesting thing. We'll be talking about it in the next group of weeks for sure.
So we got one more here. This is a fun one here. And this is on the YouTube comments from Fat Sal. This is a big fan of you, Hacksaw. He says, "You're still number one on my book, Lee. A lot of haters out there. You ruled since 690 and still remember you should have been on the air. These others can't match you all. All they do is talk about their lives, not sports. You're more old school. You get to the point about sports like it should be. Just found your channel. I'll be listening."
A, you are correct. I am bleeping brilliant. And B, you're bleeping brilliant for your assessment of where sports talk radio is now and how the landscape has changed. But it's really interesting. The fact that we are able to do a podcast like this live, we're able to do a podcast that you can access at your convenience, and the fact that we're able to take segments of our podcast, flip them, and then get them to you for the people that don't catch the podcast in its full-length form. So technology is really different. So we're happy you're enjoying the show. And yes, we are bleeping brilliant.